Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're doing It Came From The Network. The topic of this It Came From The Network, Rowdy Roddy Piper's Greatest Hits. And this is formerly a Coliseum video from 1985, so he still had a lot of time left in his career. This review comes as a recommendation from our good friend Bucky749. I do have to give full disclosure right up front. Stuff like this video, and specifically Rowdy Roddy Piper and Dr. D. David Schultz, are the reasons I watch pro wrestling. So I'm probably going to be pretty biased in my review here. I used to own this on a VHS back in the day. This was one of the first VHSs I owned. This, Body Slam Bloopers and Bleeps, I think, was another one from Coliseum Video. And WrestleMania 1. I bought them all from my local video store, who they would rent it out for a little while, rent the wrestling video, which I probably rented them 20 times each. And then when the rentals started going down to make room for new releases, they would sell them. For you young kids that don't remember video stores, that's what a lot of video stores would do. They would get 100 new releases, and then after it died, the demand died down, they would sell 95 of them at a discounted rate. I probably bought these with my allowance or got them for Christmas or whatever it may have been, but I had this VHS when I was a kid and I watched it a million times over. So I'm very familiar with this. It's very nostalgic. I bring this all up because nostalgia does sometimes cloud our judgment. So I wanted to give that to you guys up front. If you haven't watched my shows before, I rate everything on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 is the worst, 5 is the best. Let's jump right into it. We start the show off with our host, Mean Gene Okerlund, giving a little bit of highlights for the show, talking about Rowdy Piper's ego with naming this his greatest hits after Hulk Hogan named his video Hulkamania. And Andre the Giant just named his video Andre the Giant. Pretty cool seeing that and seeing Mean Gene in this, and he just added so much to the overall presentation. It was pretty good. We go right into that from seeing a little bit of highlights of Piper. The first thing we see is a Piper's Pit with Andre the Giant on there. This was absolutely fantastic. This was Andre. This is not the more famous one where he goes after Hogan. This is where Piper and Andre get into a little bit. Andre corners him. Piper comes back at him, and Piper says after Andre walks off, "You don't throw rocks at a guy with a machine gun." Fantastic. One of, in my opinions, one of the better Piper's Pits there ever was. The chemistry between Andre and Piper is fantastic here. And the other thing I want to bring up, in the years since this, there have been so many clones of Piper's Pit. The Miz TV or whatever the heck he calls his, or the Jericho one. You know, everybody had a version of Piper's Pit. Piper's Pit is still the best version of the format. And if you notice the newer ones, they ramble on for 15-20 minutes. These were quick. These were less than 5-minute segments. I think that means a lot. I think that's a lot of the reason why they were so successful. They crammed a bunch into a little bit of time. Overall, I thought it was fantastic. I'm going to give that segment a 5. I thought it was awesome. Going from that, we get a tag team match, where it's Piper teaming up with Dr. D. David Schultz, going up against Andre the Giant and Superfly Jimmy Snuka. Snuka, one of the legendary Piper adversaries, especially during this time. We'll get to see more of him later on the show. Again, I said it before we started the official review. The first memory I have from wrestling, and the first thing that really drew me to watch it every week, was Piper and David Schultz and their interactions with each other. That's what got me hooked on wrestling. That's what I came back for. I didn't come for Hulk Hogan. I wasn't there for anything else. Snuka, yeah, they were great, but Piper was the guy, and David Schultz, they were the guys that brought me into it. That was my jumping off point. And I was young enough that I didn't fully understand that they were the heels because they were so charismatic that they resonated with me. Even though that they were the bad guys, I would learn very shortly after this with most of my friends that watched wrestling and all the kids in the 80s watched wrestling. It was something we talked about in school. It was something that as soon as wrestling was over, we'd go out and play at the playground and emulate. They all were on the Hogan train. They all loved Hulk Hogan. I was the lone guy sitting there and liking Piper, and it was interesting being the Piper fan with a bunch of friends that are Hogan fans. Going back on track, we see Piper hits Andre in the head with some brass knucks during the match, which Andre gets taken to the back because he's bleeding. He comes back all patched up. We've seen this a million times. If you watched old school wrestling, it's a trope that they did a lot. When he comes back, it basically, the match devolves. Andre and Snuka get disqualified, so Piper and Dr. D. David Schultz pick up the win here. I thought it was a really good match. I really liked, even though it's a trope, and I was kind of expecting, and I'll talk about that later when I do an overall review, I was kind of expecting less of the in-ring stuff than we got here. I'm giving this one a 4. I thought it was a really good show. Now from that, our next segment has another Piper's Pit, this time with Frank Williams, which I know if you've watched wrestling enough, you've seen this Piper's Pit. It's one of the ones that is most talked about. Frank Williams was an enhancement guy. Piper pretty much makes fun of him the whole time and then attacks him afterwards. I don't have to talk about that. Everybody's seen this. If you're watching this video, you've seen that video. I'm giving that a 5. Next up, we start to get into the build for WrestleMania 1. So we see Piper on the set of the A-Team coming to interview Mr. T. They get into it a little bit of a shoving match. The people on set break it up. Again, another fantastic segment. All the talking segments with Piper on this are absolutely fantastic. This is where he excels. Mr. T was very good in his role. You could tell a little bit he was an outsider, but he wasn't as bad as a lot of people make him out to be. Now, in-ring, he wasn't great. But in these segments and stuff like this, his charisma definitely carried it over. I'm giving that segment a 5 as well. Next up, we get from the MTV's War to Settle the Score, which is again in the lead up to WrestleMania. This was a huge event back in the day. For those of you that come after the MTV generation and just see MTV as a show that has Jersey Shore, MTV was a cultural phenomenon. For this match to get onto, in this show, the War to Settle the Score, to get onto MTV, that was a big coup, because that put it on basically every cable service in America. And I know we're in the era of streaming, and if you grew up in this era, you don't realize how big being on MTV and how big being on cable was. This would be the equivalent of this being on the front page of YouTube and every day for a month, or being the first video that opens every time you open up TikTok, or being the video that plays when you go to Instagram. Everybody watched this. This was a highly viewed event, and it led to the creation of WrestleMania. So we get Hulk Hogan versus Rowdy Roddy Piper in the Rock and Wrestling feud. Piper has Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff and Bob Orton with him. Mr. T is sitting in the crowd ringside. Hogan has Cyndi Lauper. Much like I said with the segments before, you've probably already seen this if you've seen this video. It breaks down to a point where it looks like where Orndorff and Piper are both going after Cyndi Lauper, but Mr. T comes out of the crowd to make the save. That breaks down into T and Hogan standing off with Piper. It ends up the match with a DQ. Hogan wins. I'm giving this one a 5. I thought it was fantastic. Again, and I'll talk about this in the overview. you hear Hogan versus Piper, you don't expect the match quality to be great. But we'll talk about more about the match quality later because it is an overarching thing that I want to talk about. Again, giving it a 5, I thought it was fantastic. You could definitely see why WrestleMania was so successful when stuff like this was used in the build. Next up, we get a special for the video only, for Coliseum video only, Piper's Pit, where Rowdy Roddy Piper interviews his greatest guest, according to him, and that guest is Rowdy Roddy Piper. This was awesome. I thought it was interestingly, and it was funny, and he's so glib going back and forth. I loved every part of this. This was amazing. Again, I'm going to give that segment a 5. I thought it was fantastic. And like I said in the beginning of the show, I might be being biased, but this is the stuff that really made me love wrestling, and it still holds up in my opinion. After that, we get a famous training montage. This again is in the lead up to WrestleMania, where we got Piper, Orndorff, and Orton training with Mean Gene there. Another fine segment. That leads us right into a doctor's visit from the Tuesday Night Titans show with Orton, who famously had a cast forever, getting a checkup, and the doctor basically saying it's healed. There's no reason for him to have the cast. If you don't remember, he was using the cast during his matches and other people's matches as a weapon. It breaks down, and basically Piper says that the doctor's a quack and starts quacking like a duck. It is hilarious. For that, for the montage, the training, and that, I'm going to give that segment a 5 as well. Next up, we get probably the most popular Piper's Pit segment that's ever been aired. Jimmy Superfly Snuka comes to the pit. We all know and love it. This is where Snuka gets hit with a coconut. The video they're showing from this is the Tuesday Night Titans coverage of it. So you see the original Piper's Pit, and then you see it cuts away a little bit, and then you have Vince McMahon and Lord Alfred Hayes talking to Piper about what happened, which, of course, he's Piper. He gives some glib answers, ends up smacking Alfred Hayes in the mouth. All in all, everybody knows this segment. Well beloved. I'm giving it a 5. Then we get a match with Jimmy Superfly Snuka versus Rowdy Roddy Piper with special guest referee Lou Thez. And I swear, and I didn't go back and rewind it, I swear they said it was a no disqualification match. However, it ends up with a disqualification, and the reason being that Piper pulls Thez in front of a diving headbutt from Snuka, and Snuka headbutts Thez. Snuka picks up the win on this by DQ. I'm giving this one a 3. Personally, my least favorite of the in-ring matches on the show, and I was a little bit surprised by that, by how good of an in-ring wrestler Snuka was, and how good the chemistry between the two was. I don't know where this was recorded. I think they said Minneapolis is what they said on the video. I'm not sure if that's true or not, or if it was just said for video. I'm probably believing that this was probably the 5th night of 7 in a row, or the 10th night of 12 in a row, and they've ran this match 1,000 times, and it kind of fell a little bit flat. I'm giving that a 3. I thought it was good, not great. Then we get in a little bit where Piper reads a letter from Jimmy Snuka's kid saying that not to injure my dad because he cries at night, which I remember that vividly, especially from this video. That was such a good little piece. He mentions a similar thing talking about Hogan in his Piper's Pit with himself. He talks about Hogan's mom wanting Piper to stop beating up her kid. So similar thing, just a little bit different. From that, we go into a Piper's Pit with the Tonga Kid. They say it's the Tonga Kid, but it's actually Sam Moo. It's not the Tonga Kid. This was a little bit lackluster. There was no action in it. It was a little bit back and forth, a little bit short. Still good, but if I was looking at it, this is the lesser of the the Piper's Pits that they put on the show, I'm going to give this segment a 3. From that, we get the Piper going up against the Tonga Kid, which it is the actual Tonga Kid, which kind of hurts my heart a bit because I love the movie Body Slam, and if you haven't seen it, definitely look for that and go watch it. In that movie, Piper and Tonga Kid are a tag team. Quick Rick Roberts and Tonga Tom. I almost called him Tonga. Tonga Tom and Quick Rick Roberts are their tag team, or are their names in the movie. So this was the breakup of the team going up against each other. Fun fact, I was at this match. This was when this was taped at the Philadelphia Spectrum. And the tickets to go to the WWE back then were rather cheap. And monthly they would run in the Spectrum. So pretty much every month after I became a huge wrestling fan, myself and my stepfather would go to matches at the Philadelphia Spectrum. This was 100% one of the matches we seen. I remember this vividly being there live. This was absolutely awesome. I enjoyed this. It breaks down with Snuka and Orton getting involved, which ends up in a double disqualification. Really fun match, really solid. I'm going to give it a 4. Which leads us to the main event of the video. Piper and Cowboy Bob Orton, and I probably called him Randy a couple times. If I've called him Randy on the video, I'm sorry. Going up against Jimmy Superfly Snuka and the Tonga Kid, which, by the way, they mentioned that Tonga is his cousin. I know that there's some lineage issues there. I don't know that they're actually cousins. This was a good match again. Really solid interaction between the two teams. It breaks down, everybody gets involved. They don't announce the winner or loser, so I'm assuming it's a no contest. I'm giving this a 4. Overall, I was a little bit surprised by the quality of the in-ring work. Piper's not known as an in-ring great wrestler, like on the levels of Ricky Steamboat or Randy Savage, but he's serviceable. And some of the guys we've seen on here, Andre's definitely, at this time, he was not as good as he was in the 70s. Still, this was still pre-WrestleMania 3. I want to say after WrestleMania 2, he really started a quick decline in his action. The surprise on this was Snuka wasn't the Snuka match, and even the other interactions, the one match he had, the solo match with Snuka, wasn't as good as I expected that to be, but it wasn't bad, don't get me wrong. Just, it was surprising, because WWE, if you go back and you watch a 1985 WWE show, the most glaringly bad thing about those shows is the in-ring. And the in-ring on this video was surprisingly good. Couple things that I had issue with on this. I think it was formatted a little bit weirdly. I know Piper and Snuka is a huge feud, but the biggest match that led to the biggest thing at the time in WWE in 1985, the biggest thing that ever happened in WWE, WrestleMania 1, they should have ended it with the build to WrestleMania 1 and Hogan versus Piper at the War to settle the score. That should have been just reorganized. It's not a complaint about what's on here, it's about the placing on it. I would have either ended it with Hogan versus Piper, which I thought was the best match on the show, or I would have ended it with the Piper's Pit with him interviewing himself. Either one of them I think would have better ending. It's just a small gripe about placing. Overall, as you could probably guess, I'm giving the whole video a 5. Again, you can definitely check it out. If you have the old VHS tape, I don't think there's any differences. I didn't notice any. I haven't owned the VHS personally. It probably broke in the early 90s or mid-90s at the latest. I watched it a million times. I didn't know there were no glaring differences. If there are some and you know, let me know in the comments. I didn't see there wasn't any that I could pick out. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Again, giving it a 5. I love the fact that there's a match that I attended on here. I love seeing Piper at the height of him being Rowdy Roddy Piper. This Piper, to me, this era and the Mid-South era, the Crockett era in 83, just before this, he was on fire and he was absolutely the best thing in wrestling. And to me, he was my first favorite wrestler. He was the guy that got me into it, so I love reviewing this. This was an awesome video. Again, thank you to Bucky749 for the recommendation. Which reminds me, if there's something you want to see me review, let me know in the comments. Chances are I'll probably do it. I'm always open to suggestions. Now, before I do go off the air, I do want to make an announcement, and this is for the people that watch all of my videos or watch a majority of them. Kind of a channel announcement here, and I'm doing this on all my videos this week. Starting next week, which if you're watching this in the week it was recorded, it'll be August 20th or 21st. We're going to revamp the schedule of when I release videos. With my shoot job, I have Wednesdays and Sundays off. So those are the days I get to record these videos. Right now, I release the videos as soon as I'm done recording them and as soon as I'm done editing them. So basically, every Wednesday and Sunday, you're getting 2, maybe 3 videos. So I wanted to change that to spread it out a little bit. There's a couple reasons why, and we'll get into that in a moment. But I wanted to change that a little bit, so we're going to change our release schedule, and I'm letting everybody know here. I'll also make a post on the page if you don't watch these videos, or, well, you wouldn't know that. If you watch this, you're going to know. Anyway, so from here on out, the New Japan Strong reviews are going to come out late Saturday or Sunday, depending on what's happening Saturday night. If there's another pay-per-view or special event, a live show to me will supersede the taped show, so I'm going to review, like, say, something like SummerSlam was just on a Saturday. I'm going to review that before I watch the taped show, which would be Strong. Because live wrestling supersedes tape wrestling, if that makes sense. So you're going to see that on a Saturday or Sunday. From there, It Came From the Network, which this video is one of those, will be coming out on Wednesdays. Walking in Memphis, which is where I review Memphis wrestling from the 80s and 90s, and sometimes even the 70s, that'll be coming out on Thursdays from now on. Top 10s will come out on Fridays. The reason being, the Strong review is something I'm going to have to do after it airs. The other 3, the top 10, the Walking in Memphis, the It Came From a Network, I'm reviewing stuff that's happened historically. So I can record all of that on Wednesday and then do it as a release, as a staggered release, instead of dropping it all the same day. There's a couple reasons why I want to do this. One is I think it'll be better for you guys. And I appreciate if I drop 3 videos a day and you watch all 3 of them. I see the people that comment on every one of my videos, and I really do appreciate that. But I think it'll be better for you to have it spread out, to have different days where you don't necessarily feel like you have to watch them all in one day. You can still wait till they're all released and binge watch them. I'm fine with that. However you consume my videos, I'm 100% okay with it. I just think it'll be better for both you and for me as well. It gives me more openness for Saturday night, Sunday, to do other things like pay-per-view reviews, or other things like the How I Would Have Booked series. It opens that up a little bit more for Sundays, or Saturday nights and Sundays, and gives me more that I can do during the week. That way I can knock out the 3 videos on a Wednesday, put them on a release schedule, which you'll see I'll probably be wearing the same shirt for 3 days in a row in a video. It's because they're all recorded the same day. And the other reasons, one of the selfish reasons, is I think it'll help with my algorithm. I think it'll help drive more views to the channel. I think YouTube will promote it better if there's more days I'm releasing videos than just 2 days a week where I'm dropping videos. So I think that'll help drive viewers to the channel, which will drive up subscribers, which in that case will help me to get monetized. Right now I am not monetized. I do these videos mostly for fun. I enjoy doing them. I enjoy conversing with the people that jump on here and jump in the comments. But I would love to get monetized for, obvious reasons. Who wouldn't want to be paid to do something they like to do? But other reasons, like if I get monetized, it'll help me to upgrade my equipment quicker. Right now I want to get new lights. It will help me to do that. It'll help me with buying better editing software, better microphone. That's another thing that's on the top of my list that I want to do. I want to get a better microphone. I had a lapel microphone that I was using, and it broke. Right now, this is straight off the camera microphone, which isn't the greatest, which afterwards I'm having, in the editing process, I'm making the sound quality better. I'd like to get a better microphone that I don't have to edit that so much. Also, it'll give me the opportunity to buy better editing software. All of that stuff. With that being said, that is the reasoning for it. That's why I wanted to give everybody a heads up. There's also going to be a community post on the YouTube page where I make that announcement as well. And with all that being said, if you made it all the way to the end, smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't, and let me know you made it to the end in the comments. Let's put Piper's Pit in the comments if you made it to the end. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of It Came From the Network.